Today we are going to talk about the three types of decorators in LWC. The first we have is @API, another is @track, and another is @wire. Let's understand the difference between all of the three. Okay, @API, what we'll do by default it is a reactive thing. Okay, whenever a property will be marked as a @API, it will be considered by default as reactive. As long as there is a change in the value, it will be automatically re-rendered. But what does exactly this @API does? Okay, it will make the property as public. What does the public mean? Public means that that particular property now will be exposed to the external system. What external system? It can be changed. The value can be set by the parent. Okay, for example, consider a scenario. Child has some property, okay, and parent wants to send some data. So how the parent will send the data? In the child there would be a property. You will mark the property as @API. Okay, you will decorate the property as @API, and now the property became public, which means it is exposed. Then what will happen? The parent will be able to send the data to the public, to that public property. I hope we are clear with how to mark @API to the properties. Okay, then comes marking the @API to the methods. Okay, consider a scenario. There was some parent component, there is a child component. Child component has some functions, has some methods. For example, consider we have a video player game, and in that video player game we have certain functions like play function, pause function. Okay, these are the methods that we have. Okay, in those methods we have all the data present. Okay, what happens when we click on play, what happens when we click on pause? This is present in my child component. My parent component wants to access this methods. Okay, they also want to access this method. Due to the shadow dom, they'll not be able to do it directly. But if I want to mark my methods as public as @API, then what will happen? My parent component will be easily able to access those methods present in the child component. I hope @API is clear. Let's move to @track. Okay, by default, all the properties, all the values that are getting changed every time the property changes its value. Whenever there is a change in the value of the property, it will be automatically re-rendered by the system. Okay, but for the primitive data types we are good. String, number, whenever there is a change, they will be automatically getting rendered. What happens with objects and arrays? That as soon as there is a change in the property in the objects or arrays, we cannot track them directly. That's the reason we are going to use @track for the objects and for the arrays, because primitive types are already they are already reactive. So @track is used whenever we want to make the property as reactive, which means whenever there is a change we want to track it. Okay, but primitive data types are already reactive, so no need to mark those properties at @track. We are only going to mark the properties @track would be the properties which are with objects or the arrays. Okay, let's move to the third point. Now we have @wire. @wire, what will happen whenever, say, you want to fetch some information, you want to read it. Okay, so there is a Apex controller that is sending us some data, that is returning us some information, and you want to see it. So in the scenario where you only want to read information, you don't want to perform any DML operations, you can, what will happen, the LDS system, it will automatically store that information in your cache, such that you will, whenever you want to see that information, every time the server call will not happen. It is already present in your cache. Only when there is a change in the data, it will continuously look for the provisions. It will see if there is a change in the data. Okay, let me do a server call. Otherwise, I'm fine. I am sitting in the cache. Whenever the customer needs, let me show this. Okay, I hope @wire is clear. To the Apex class, whenever we want to use that particular @wire in my LWC, for which type of Apex classes, whenever they are marked as @aura enabled, cacheable equals to true. Okay, I hope wire is clear, track is clear, and @API is clear. Thank you everyone.